Corbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Corbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Pro Physique Code. We are officially a few days out from going to the Arnold. By the time you guys hear this, you'll already know the answers to our predictions, what we're going to talk about for the Arnold. We're also going to talk about some topics on what is better, this or that. And I always like talking about things that people don't expect in prep, like things they don't tell you about prep. So I think we've got a couple good ideas to like make this a very entertaining podcast. As always, I've got Evan here and Lexi. How are you guys?
Doing
buddy,
good.
how are you?
I'm good. Tomorrow morning, flying. So this year they moved the Arnold Amateur to Thursday. Last year it was Friday, which I loved because I got to be there one day less. Don't get me wrong, I love Columbus, Ohio, but being there for 5 days in the cold when you're from Florida.
Oh, yeah. One thing I do appreciate about Columbus is, I don't know if I'm not super familiar with the city, but I know last year, like with the hotel I stayed in, I never had to go outside because there are sky bridges like to the Expo Center. So I'm hoping
Oh, so you were in the Hilton across the street, whatever,
I
right?
was not at the Hilton
Oh.
last year. This year I am. But whatever hotel I was at last year, there were the sky bridges. It was a little bit of a walk, but it was nice because I didn't have to go outside at all.
Well, I remember we were walking last year and I forgot I didn't bring much of a jacket. I brought like a pullover. And as soon as the expo started, I went to the core booth and was like, give me a hoodie. I don't care if it's $100. I don't even care right now.
Yeah, it's weird because cold in Florida is just a different cold than anywhere else. So like people laugh at me. Like for years, I didn't even own a winter jacket. Like when I went cold places, it was just a thick sweater. Not anymore because I travel to cold places, but yeah, it's different. It hits different.
Yeah.
Although I did look and I don't see any treacherous weather. Like there's no, like one year I went, it was 3 degrees. So none of that. So
Yeah, it's always hard to I'm sure you guys understand this when you're flying from Florida to cold places. You have to be strategic. You're like, all right, do I bring my winter coat on the plane with me and like in Florida and then just put it on when I get to my destination? And it's always hard to I don't know, maybe I just overthink that, but
I always wear what I want to be wearing when I get off the plane. So I usually wear like, jeans and, I'll have a couple layers. So yeah, it is a challenge. I just went on a ski trip too, and the same thing. I was like, what do I wear on the flight? Because I know I'm taking off in 75 and landing in 35. So so it's weird to go to the airport all covered up and you're like sweating on the airplane, but
yep.
Yeah, last time I went to the beach, I remember seeing people go directly to the hotel, and I guess they came from a cold place, so they were like all covered in jackets and everything and long sleeves and stuff, walking like on the beach into their like villa. And I was just laughing. I was like, "You obviously came from somewhere that was freezing. It's a culture shock for you."
Well, so we're gonna do a Pro Physique Code meetup. This is kind of a last second arrangement with the Angel competitions on Saturday at 3. Obviously, you guys aren't going to be, you either came or you didn't, but we're going to announce that on social media over the next day or two. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I don't really know where the booth is. I guess I could look at the Expo breakdown. I just know it's booth 500, so I'm curious if that's going to be a
We'll
hopefully.
announce it on our stories and
Yeah, we're
maybe
going to
put
announce
a
it.
map. The
Yeah.
Expo, I'll say this, there was a peak Arnold experience, which I would have said was like 2017, 2018, 20, maybe even back when Arnold was actually governor, forget about it. But I think he had to have extra security when he came. So Saturdays were insane. And then obviously with COVID, there was no Expo for 1 year. I still have eerie pictures of that whole hall being empty the year that Daraja competed at the Arnold. And then the last couple of years, it's picked back up. Like it started off slow. I mean, 1 year it was like you could just run up and down the aisles, like 22 maybe. So 23 was getting busier. Last year was pretty busy. I'm curious to see because I've talked to a lot of people that just aren't going this year. So I don't know if that's specific to like my friend groups or if it's going to be a different size than normal.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like I've had a decent amount of people telling me they're going. I also feel like Columbus, Ohio, I mean, unless you live on the West Coast, I feel like if you're like Midwest or you're Florida in Florida or like the Northeast, I mean, you can get some pretty decent priced flights there. So I feel like it's an easier expo for a lot of people to get to as opposed to like the Olympia in Vegas, just from a budget standpoint. But I
And
don't
it's not a hard flight either. It's a pretty quick
know.
flight for most places.
No.
No, I mean, but the difference with the Olympia is like when you go to Vegas, people go to Vegas just to go to Vegas. I don't know anybody that goes to Columbus, Ohio, just to go to Columbus, Ohio. Unless you're an Ohio State football fan, or yeah, I don't know why you would go there if it wasn't for this convention. So the difference is like when you go to the Olympia, when you leave the Olympia Expo, you're like, cool, now we're in Vegas. But the the audience is so much more wider because it's not just bodybuilding. This is like
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's people that go there that don't even know there's bodybuilding. That's how big it is. They're like there for like a jujitsu tournament or for like powerlifting or strongman or freaking there's ping pong. There's
Sumo wrestling with the
I think
guys.
there was a
I heard.
foosball tournament there one year. I was, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, Paul, I saw Kayla. She looks great.
You guys,
Kelia looks the best she's ever looked.
Yeah, she looks really, really
So
good.
Josephine looks the best she's ever looked. My Japanese girl, Saki, she's coming over. She looks the best she's ever looked. Lisa looks amazing. I'm excited. And I had Haley, who got fifth at nationals, is going. So I've got a really good group of girls that are what I consider they're so consistent. It makes it, doing the Arnold is problematic because there are no other pro qualifiers for like 8 or 9 weeks. So a lot of people, I used to have them do this early in my career, 2016, 2017, thinking, oh, we'll do the Arnold. And then if we don't turn pro, we'll go to junior USAs. No one ever made it to junior USAs.
It's a long
No.
time.
Last year, Kalia won her class here and actually got better and won her class at junior USAs. So all the competitors that are here, they just did the show in December, right? Except for Saki, because she just did a show in Japan. But like, so it tells me that like these girls can actually handle coming in and out of prep and maintaining and coming in better for the next show. So I think it'll be a good kicking off point for their seasons. I'm excited.
Good.
yeah,
And
I'm
also,
really
too,
curious to see how many girls show up too at this show because last year I remember it was like baffling how small it was. I mean, there were two girls in one height class, but I feel like I've heard of more girls doing it this year. So curious to see if the numbers are a lot higher. I mean, I hope they are.
I think girls pay attention. When you go, okay, there's two pro cards available, and there was like 25 girls competing or 24. I think I looked on because I tracked every show last year, and so 2 out of 25. Yeah, right. And so I think you see that and go, okay. And then you see the caliber of the girls that were in the overall, and you go, okay, like if I come in better than that, I'm going to have a chance. And that's really, as a competitor, I think what you want to know, because you can't guarantee anything, but you can go, okay, based on what I'm seeing at this show, I fit that criteria. So I think we'll see some of the girls that have done the shows recently. I've seen some good ones and I've seen some mediocre ones, but also to qualify for this show, you just had to be top two you had to be nationally qualified last year or top five at a national show. So there's girls that could have got like third at nationals that have just been keeping it quiet, and here they come.
Yeah, I feel like this show, I think you would probably agree with this, Paul. Like you kind of just mentioned it about your athletes competing. I feel like this show, a lot of the competitors who come in looking amazing at this show this early in the season, like these are the people that they live the lifestyle all the time, right? Because,
yeah.
the people that are just kind of interested and they compete, just I don't know, like they kind of fall off in their off season. They probably enjoyed Christmas, enjoyed Thanksgiving, like they're not ready for this show. So it's like I feel like the people that are going into this show ready, they're, just a true testament to people that live this lifestyle and don't have these big up and down swings, season to season.
I mean, what are we, 9 weeks after Christmas? So like, yeah, like you were dieting over Thanksgiving and Christmas to be ready for this show, or you were staying close to stage weight. So yeah, you are locked in on your physique for this show. So now that something different they're doing this year is that they're doing men and women together. So last year we went Lexi on I think we were done out the door by like 11,
11,
11:30
I think.
a.m.
Yeah, it was early.
That was with prejudging, routines, awards, finals, pictures. We were out and we could still get breakfast.
Yep.
Um, and Evan got a new name last year.
That's
Yeah.
right.
What was it?
That's our
Aiden?
start
Is that what it
Aiden.
was? That's
Aiden.
right.
Yes. We went to the I don't know why that memory like lives rent free in my brain. So we went to Starbucks, I want to say right after prejudging or while we were waiting or something. And I remember standing there and they called Aiden and we were just kind of like, and I was like, Evan, maybe that's your drink. And sure enough, it was. So
Yes, it was.
Made me think, I don't know if you guys watch How I Met Your Mother, but there's an episode where the character's name is Barney and they write Swarley on his drink. And so for the whole episode, they call him Swarley. It's just funny. So yeah,
funny.
I think we called you Aiden all weekend.
We
Yeah.
did. We
Well,
did.
one cool thing about the guys and girls being together is you'll get to see the social media Sam Sulek try to get his pro card in classic.
Yeah, it's
So I
to
think he
me,
looked good his first show.
I got all the respect in the world for that kid because he doesn't need to compete.
Nope.
His social media following is so big. He's actually a real bodybuilder, which
Yep.
he's not a social media bodybuilder. He's not interested in just winning. He's very he's very I just like his demeanor about the sport. He's not in a rush. He takes it um he takes it one step at a time, and yeah, it's good to see somebody with his like outlook on the sport competing, because I think he's going to help other young people get involved in the sport and do it the right way and take their time. Um, he looks good. It's not a walk in the park at all. Like
No,
if
no.
like this show, I'll be honest, I don't know, because I didn't watch the men last year. I'd be surprised if he wins the overall, just because I think he's got some holes in his physique that need to come up. Like, his lower body doesn't quite match his upper. He needs to get a little bit more detail in his lower body. Um,
Well,
he could
he
be,
also I think the cool thing about him too is he did it all his own way, right? Like he really didn't listen to
yeah,
anybody. He coached himself. I
yeah.
mean, honestly, like he crash dieted. He did all the stuff probably you should never want to do in a prep, but he's doing it the way he wants to do it. And he's like, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And
Also, I will say
that's kind of
this.
cool.
You're always going to look better at your second show, let
Yeah.
alone your first ever show. But I always tell my athletes, you're going to look better at your second show of the season. So, the fact that he did a show a couple weeks ago and he's had time to like, oh, I looked better this day. I looked better this day. I looked worse this day. He has the potential to come in significantly better and he could win. I'm not saying he can't win, but I'm just saying, like, based on what the kind of the physiques that I see, I'd almost rather him not win, because I think it'll be cool for him to have a journey where he
Yeah.
probably takes another year off, right?
I think what's super. I'm sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, the one cool thing about winning the Arnold is that you get invited to compete at the Arnold the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
think what's
cool.
super cool with well, no, go ahead, Lexi. Then I'll go.
No, I was gonna say that's cool because I know I've gotten I've had a couple people ask like looking at the bikini lineup this year. We see Anastasia Stargins, and she's the girl that won the overall bikini last year. I know I had a couple girls ask me, like, they're like, I don't recognize that name. How's she on the list? And I said, well, she's the one that won the bikini overall last year, so she's automatically invited the year after that. Now, what's interesting though is she actually competed several times in pro shows last year. So this is not like her pro debut. She actually did pretty well last year on the pro stage, cracking into some top fives, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see how she, how she does it amongst the lineup of 10 girls
Yeah.
for bikini this year.
Yes,
Is
she
there-
won't. I don't think she'll be competitive in this lineup. This lineup is too good. And I saw her, like, the way she looked when she won the overall last year was the best she looked the whole season. I saw her at Clash and Girl Power, a couple of those little shows she did to start the year, and she looked really good. But I think she started to fade. So if she comes back with a little bit more muscle and that same level of conditioning and that great stage presence, she'll get looked at. But like, I think we talked about maybe doing a little prediction here.
Yeah, let's.
I don't,
Yeah.
I don't dig too deep into this, but
Mhm.
I've looked at a few of the athletes, and there's one that I just can't take my eyes off of right now.
Oh, okay. Well, wait, before you say who
What-
it is, let me go
Okay.
through. Let me just run through the
Well,
list. Really quick.
let me say my one thing about the Samsung thing before we dive all the way over here
Oh, yeah,
into
good
this
idea.
side of things. So I do think it's really interesting for people to understand bodybuilding that don't go to shows and don't see how this stuff is. I think he shocked a lot of people because he is so big. Everyone just assumed he was going to go right into bodybuilding, but he's not big enough to go directly into bodybuilding. Like he is a big man that's doing classic physique. So put that in everyone's perspective on things on how big he is, but when he dieted down, he falls into classic physique. So when you see these big open bodybuilders, that puts it in perspective of how big these people actually are. And if you
Yeah, I
don't
think
go to
he
shows, you
got
don't
down to
understand it.
what is he, about 6 foot? And he got down to about 216.
I
Is that
think
right?
216, 217. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a big guy, but you know, at 6 foot to be at the Olympia, you're probably gonna have to be 260 on stage, you know, like on the low end. So like,
Yeah, on the low end, 270. I mean,
yeah,
Samson Dowd is 6'1" and 300 pounds on stage, to put it in perspective.
yeah, and I mean the one thing that I notice about Sam's physique is that he doesn't have the greatest, you know, genetic structure. So he's going to have to overcome that, right? His waist is very wide. He's going to have to build massive quads to give himself. Now, can he? Absolutely. Like I think his quad insertions, his lat insertions, his shoulder insertions all give him the potential to have a big X frame, but it's going to require 30, 40 pounds of lean mass if he wants to do a bodybuilding. I don't think he'll be competitive in classic physique in the pro league. He just
No.
doesn't have that X factor, the tiny little waist that, you know, you even look at somebody like Wesley Vissers who wins, he's got a wide waist and his waist is
Yep.
smaller. You know, you almost need that wow factor. Like who was the guy that got second last year at the Olympia that everyone was shocked by?
Um,
Is it Mike?
Mike,
Summer?
yeah, Mike,
Summer?
oh
Summer?
geez,
Summerfield?
Mike
Sorry,
Summerfield. Yeah.
yeah. Like the reason that that guy snuck up on everybody is because it looks like his waist is in a cincher on stage. Like he doesn't have a waist. And so that makes all his other proportions blow up. And in a category where you have to fit a weight cap, you can't just outgrow the kind of the structure you have. You can't be 280 in classic. So it's going to be hard, I think, for Sam. If he's already struggling to meet his height weight for classic, it's going to be, you know, rough.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. The next level, I don't see him being competitive in classic, just because even with the 10 pounds he could add to it, it's not going to be enough on his
yeah,
frame, I don't think. But
yeah. All
all right,
right. Well,
Lexi, we'll go over it.
let's talk pro
Um,
bikini.
Yeah, so bikini, let me just go through the list really quickly. So there's only 10 girls. Tamikia Carter, Ariana Brothers, Ashlyn Little, Jazzy Gonzalez, Anastasia Spargans, Vanya, Maria Acosta, Amy Delgado, Jordan Brannon, and Angelica. And this is also Angelica's last show ever. Like she announced her retirement. So I'm curious, Paul, who as I think I know who you're going to say for your standout, but I'm curious what you think. So I have a top three, and I think maybe each of us can like share our top three.
Yeah, I mean, I think the heavy favorite just on history going into this would be Amy because we've got the girls that pulled out. But
Right.
you know, I've been around this sport and these girls for so long. I know their physiques very well. In fact, the person that I'm going to mention, I've probably seen her compete at almost every show she's ever done. Um, and you know, the last time I that Ariana Brothers won a show under my guidance, she beat Jasmine Gonzalez. And I remember looking at Jasmine that day and going, man, she's getting close. She looks incredible right now. I've never seen her this lean. She's got probably the best genetics on that stage as far as shoulder to waist to glute fullness ratios. Her issue has never been structure, genetics, or anything. It's always been consistency. Well, she looks better now than she did going into the Olympia. So she's my pick to win.
Okay.
You know, but again, I don't follow Amy. I don't watch her stuff. I don't know how she's looking, but she's been someone that's either like really on or like doesn't have the detail. If she shows
Yeah.
up like she has in the past, it could be
It's
her
going to
day
be
too.
close. Yeah.
I did see her post something recently about how at the Olympia, I think her feedback was she didn't have that like pop or that density. She had kind of lost that. And I did see her post that she's like a couple pounds up from her Olympia weight, so that's probably a good thing. Because I actually have, so I think I'll give my top three because I think it could kind of go either way. I agree with you, Paul. I definitely have Jazzy in my top three. I have Amy, and then I have Vanya in the
That's
top
what I
three
got.
as well. Those are kind of my top three contenders, and honestly, like I think it could go any way. It just depends, how they show up on that given day. Because I just saw an update from Vanya too, and I'm like, Wow, she looks good. And
Yeah.
she's one of those that just has like close to Laura Lee, like when it comes to that stage presence. Like when you watch her pose, you're so in it. It's like she's so graceful and fluid and spunky on stage, and like one that's really fun to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my top three.
this lineup has a lot of history. These girls have competed a lot, right? So there's, it makes it a little bit easier. And something different about the Arnold this year than in years past, it doesn't feel like the lineup is very varied. It feels like they just picked out the top people that applied. Because
Yeah.
you also took out Lauralee, who decided not to do the show, and you took out
Marine.
Maureen Blanquisco, who's a former Miss Bikini Olympia. So you took out two Olympia champions, which kind of stinks because the field's down to what, 10? So there's two other girls that could have got in there. Um, and they used to make a big deal about girls pulling out of the Arnold, and I didn't hear much of that this year. So it makes you wonder if something's changing within the Arnold. But it's just all American competitors, right? Like
Mhm.
usually it's called the International Championships. Usually the lineup is a mixture of a couple of top girls and then a couple of girls on their way up. I think almost everybody in this lineup has been top 10 at the Olympia, which kind of boring. Like it's cool to give somebody a shot. I don't know if Tamikia has been top 10 at the Olympia, but I believe she's been in the top two callouts for sure. So, the year that Daraja got ninth, I know Tamikia was like 11th. She was right there. So that's the only thing that's kind of like, it just feels like a repeat of the Olympia a little bit. Like there's no, other than the girl that won the overall at the amateur being in there, there's no surprises.
Yeah.
I have a very specific. Sorry.
No, go for it, Evan.
I have a very specific. I think it's going to be between Jazzy and Amy, and I think for the same reasons that they're good and the same reasons they struggle. I think Amy, when she competes a lot, like a lot, right? And I think that she probably gets a little tired towards the end of the year. So with a little bit of rest after Olympia, she'll probably come back just like she did last year and come out guns blazing with it. And Jazzy is, hasn't been, like you said, the most consistent with it, right? But she's coming off the Olympia with it, kind of rolling into this with some good momentum. So it might be kind of like the perfect storm to where she has that good momentum to propel her forward, and then Amy's a little bit rested, and they could be two really good packages in the best. Because Amy, I think, is normally at her best, usually, earlier on in the year.
Well, I think my favorite look I ever saw of Amy's was last year at Wasatch, which was a couple weeks
Yeah.
after the Arnold. She narrowly lost the Arnold. It was a split decision, like it was close. Laura Lee came in a little bit over conditioned. Amy was her typical good conditioning, but I don't think she was like as tight as she could have been. But Wasatch, because I had Brittany going into that show looking incredible, and then Amy beat her, and I think rightfully so. But that look at Wasatch, I was like, because I was like, man, we could beat her, and she came out, and I was like, damn, like you
Yep.
know,
I talked to you after the prejudging, Paul, and because I thought Brittany looked
yeah.
awesome. Even Sadiq messaged me. He was like, Brittany looks really, really good. Like, she looked awesome. But when I talked to you at the prejudging, you were like, Brittany looks great. She's like, but Amy's just like
There
on.
are some girls that are, if they're out, if they're on, like, and I'll throw this out there, Ariana, I love coaching her. Like, if she's on, she can win the show. Like it's just going to come down to, and that's the cool thing about like the pro bikini division as it stands. The show is judged live. It's not a name competition anymore. We saw it at the Olympia. No one had Jazzy Gonzalez in the top three, even getting split center for a little bit. They moved her to middle ahead of Ashley. And they moved her back out, but like no one had that. And that's what's cool about the Olympia. So you go, oh wow, these are what's happening on the stage is what's going to determine it. So there are, all of these girls. Who else is in the lineup? Because you got to forgive me.
Well, so we had Tamikia,
Ashlyn.
Ari, Ashlyn, Jordan Brannon, Angelica, Maria Costa. Yeah, those are the ones you haven't
I
really.
mean, Maria Acosta could win this show.
Yeah, she's looking great too.
Ashlyn could win this show. Like all these girls have beat each other.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like Ariana's beat Jasmine. I think actually Ariana got seventh at the Olympia the year I had her there. I think
Here's
Ashlyn got eighth that year. So she's beat Ash. You know what I'm saying? So like these girls have all
yeah.
beat each other. There's outside of, even Amy lost to Jazzy at the Olympia.
If
Um,
if if either Amy or Jazzy are on just based off their height and structure, they're gonna beat someone like Ashlyn or Angelica or any of the other people. Just I think based off their God-given
I
structures
saw
and their
Angelica
heights.
at
And
her last show of the season last year, and she lost to a girl who was in her second pro show.
yeah,
And it
Angelica's
just,
not. Yeah.
I don't think Angelica has the balance at this point.
Mm.
She looked great
Yeah.
in some poses, but she had a thinner look in some areas, and I just don't think she's competitive in the current pro
No.
bikini. But she'd announced her retirement, so who knows? Maybe she shows up looking, because I will say this about Angelica. She takes the feedback and makes the adjustments. And so she might be coming into the show improved. We'll see.
All
Yeah.
things considered, I think it's going to be tough for some of these other people to get in the mix to win, just because some of these people are not going to miss, right? Like Jazzy's not going to miss, and Amy's not going to miss, and Vanya's not going to miss. Like all
I mean,
three are not going to miss.
if you take Amy's Olympias out of the equation, because she's like sixth every year, I don't think she's finished outside of the top two at a show in
I
two,
can't
3
remember
years.
one.
Right.
And usually she winning. She won Pittsburgh Pro 2 years in a row. She won New York Pro 2 years in a row. She won Wasatch last year. Like if she's there, she's the favorite. The only thing that I'm thinking about Jazzy is Jazzy did just beat her at the Olympia, and like I'm looking at some of Jazzy's stories. Like a lot of times you can't trust social media stuff. Jazzy's taking like pictures in like the locker room just unposed. And I'm like, damn, I've never seen her
Yeah.
lower back, her waist this tight. She already has the tiniest waist on stage. So you take someone that has the best structure, give them the best conditioning. Cash knows how to peak girls.
It's going to be tough. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like a 2-horse race. If I'm going to put that there, I think both of them would have to be off significantly for someone else to win. But that can happen, right? Like, I mean, we've been to shows where everyone's
Oh, well, I
misses.
mean, one of them could overshoot conditioning. They could come in too hard. The thing is, this is also the show where the judges set the stage for the entire year of what the standard is for the pro
Right.
division. Every girl that's going to compete this year is going to watch this show. It's the only show for a while, and they're going to go, okay, that's the target.
Yep.
And then this is the other part of the pro bikini division that is a smack in the face. Let's say Jazzy wins. Let's say I'm right. Jazzy wins. Jazzy's already qualified for the next Olympia. No other girl walking off that stage is now qualified for the Olympia. So guess who's going to be at Wasatch? Guess who's going to be at the next pro shows? All these girls. And there are less pro shows this year than in a while. The Clash is gone. Spectrum removed all their pro shows, I think, except for one. The Europa, whatever, those shows are gone. Like there are less pro. So this year is going to be cutthroat for getting Olympia qualified. I
I
mean,
love it.
because there are so many international options, the numbers at the Olympia might be the same, but it's going to be a lot less Americans. I'll say that.
Right.
Good. I think it needs to be. I think it's, I'll draw this comparison for Hero to Doomsday. It's like the NFL. The NFL got way less special when it stopped being on Sundays and Mondays only. And when they start spreading it out and it was on Thursdays, on Saturdays, and all the million different channels, you spread it out too thin, it's not as special anymore. And I think it's the same thing
Yeah.
with shows. Like
Yeah.
the less shows, the more competitive these shows are, the more attention it draws to it. Like, I mean, no offense to anyone that competes, right? But if there's not big names at the show, no one really gives a crap about it. They don't. Like the more
Well,
competitive
yeah, I
we can
mean,
have and the bigger names we can have at these shows competing against each other openly is awesome. Like look at the Arnold Classic for open bodybuilding this year and last year. It's great.
yeah.
It's great. It hasn't been great, but now it's really great. It wasn't great
Well,
for years.
what's the prize money now? Isn't it like 400 or
Like
500,000?
500 grand, I think. Yeah.
I mean,
$500,000.
I bet you, like Jay Cutler's like, I bet
Well,
you Kai Green is thinking about it. Like I bet some of these guys, not obviously not Jay Cutler, but Kai Green.
think about Samson. Samson, if he wins this show and he won Olympia, he will have won $1.1 million in 2 shows.
And didn't he win the Arnold last year?
Yeah. He won 500 grand last year. So in 3 shows, he'll have won $1.6 million in 3 shows.
Yeah, but he's paying them British taxes, bro.
That's true.
Well,
That's true. He ain't got to pay for a coach, though.
let's
Yeah, listen, trust me, you got a wife. He's paying.
That's true. He's paying every day.
He lost half of that. He lost half of that
Half of
money.
it gone.
All right. Well, let's get into some of our this or that since this will come out after the Arnold. So, So basically, I know Evan and I put up question boxes on our Instagrams of like, ask us
Mhm.
this or that opinions. And I got a lot of good ones, like a lot of thought provoking people asking like, which, like, do we prefer this or do we prefer that? So, I'll start with, okay, do you want to start with one, Evan, or do you want me to start with one?
Yeah, I'll start with one.
Okay, go
I got
for
some
it.
pretty good ones. Um, I think this is a good solid one to start with. Squats or hip thrust? Talking
Oh,
about for glutes here, I'm
oh, I will
assuming.
say hip thrusts all day. For glute growth, hip thrusts all day.
Oh, well, he didn't say for glute growth. What if he said
No,
to be
yeah,
moving to
I was
powerlifting?
assuming glute growth, but it just said squats or hip thrust. It was just that was it, squats or hip thrust. So I guess we can't really draw any conclusions based off what we're talking about here. If you could only pick one movement, what would you pick?
Like personally for me, hip thrusts. Personally for my
Same,
clients, hip thrusts. I
same.
mean, if we're talking like a male, I would say squats, but I would definitely say hip thrusts. I also think hip thrusts are it's a lot less susceptible like of an injury provoking movement. I feel like some people let their ego get to them with squats, and that's when you see some back issues, hip issues. So I will say hip thrusts all day.
I think if you're looking for like toe or lower body development with it, squats is going to be up all day long. But if you're looking for just glute growth, then it's going to be hip thrust because it's load over time, right? And you can do far more targeting when it comes to that. But with squats, you can change your stance up. You can do, you know, um, feet close to hit your quads. You can spread them out farther, push through your heels if you want to do, hit more of the posterior chain in the glute area. There's a million ways you can kind of shift that, but hip thrust, you're going to get pretty much glutes out of it. Well,
Yeah.
I guess you could do it wrong and get a lot of quad. So,
Right. Yeah.
that's why these questions are fun, right? Because they're very general,
Right.
and
There, yeah.
there's not one answer for anything. That's why these are so great.
Yeah, that's why these are
But if
fun.
you're
Like,
going to pick one movement as bikini coaches, it's going to be hip thrust. Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
and even as a bodybuilding coach, squats are not, for many people, great leg builders because of the amount of stress they place on your back, on your upper body. I even had some girls that were good squatters, but we had to pull them out because it was creating marks on their back. And then when you're
Yeah.
posing, you see like so like squats are a very specific movement for getting good at squatting, but they're not required to build great legs. Now, I have some people that just biomechanically, they love squats, they can do squats. I personally, squatting for me
I can't. Horrible.
wrecked my body. My knees, my hips were always a mess at 6'3", and I have weird, structurally, it's just not a good lift for me. So yeah, hip thrust would be, I think, for the far majority of people, a much better movement for building glutes. Because even the people that squat great, they don't necessarily build glutes from it. A lot of them build quads,
Right.
hamstrings,
A lot of
adductor.
quads.
Absolutely. Well, here's
When
an
I think squats too, I think squat movements, right? Like squat movement, not necessarily like a barbell squat. It's almost like a hack squat, a pendulum squat. Like there's a bunch of type squat movements you can do with it.
Now, if you're talking about
Um,
that changes it, because if you can move your feet placement on a hack
yeah,
squat or a V squat or
change a lot.
so a barbell squat I hate, but a pitch shark squat I love.
Love it, right? Way
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
So that's why these questions, that's what we're just talking about, Paul. That's why these questions are fun, right? Because there's no like one direct answer for any of it. That's why these
Well,
are
and I need
great.
to get Brett on this podcast. I've talked about it so many times, but that's a great question. Brett gets that all the time. These arguments of like people are like squats are better than hip thrusts, and it's like, well, what's the context?
Hmm.
How many days a week can you squat and then have a successful recovery versus hip thrusting? You can hip thrust all day long and be fine. You cannot squat all day long and be fine.
Nope.
Well, here's a interesting one. This person asks, okay, you can only choose between one. So for a bikini bodybuilder, if we could only choose between one, Pilates versus CrossFit. I know like neither doing only one of those is not
I,
ideal for bikini
I,
bodybuilding, but if you had to choose, I know for me, I would say CrossFit. I think that yields far more muscle mass on a physique as opposed to somebody just doing Pilates only.
I mean, if you're talking about muscle building, it's not even close because you're not going to build muscle with Pilates at all. But
Right.
Yeah, but I don't
CrossFit
think
can also
Pilates
ruin your structure for a bikini too.
Right.
So
You
Pilates
win
is not
some, you
meant
lose
to build
some.
muscle. It's meant
no,
to
it's
build
very
strength and core control for dancers. That's where it was designed. And the device that they use is very challenging. I've done it before. I didn't necessarily enjoy it, but I can see the value in it. Um, I would I would rather have an athlete do, if they're doing a program for bikini, adding Pilates would be better than adding CrossFit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but CrossFit is obviously designed around performing high reps with, compound movements. That's going to put a little more muscle on you than Pilates would, but it's not specific. So you look at those
Yeah.
girls, they have freaking dense cores and dense jacked shoulders and quads.
Yeah.
Um,
They just don't have the
Yeah. That,
shape for bikini. They have a good amount of muscle, but it's not the shape for bikini at all.
well, I
yeah.
would
That's
say
just a,
if you're talking about the high level competitors, that's why they're high level. You're not going to have a tiny waist and a great strength ratio. That wide-waisted people are stronger. There's more bracing in their core. So yeah, I think that's part of it.
that's a really difficult question to answer. I think a better one would have been like CrossFit or powerlifting or Pilates and yoga. Like you can combine those.
Yeah.
Those are more in the same
Right.
ballpark of things with it. That's just a really
Yeah.
tough comparison.
Yeah, but that's what makes the questions fun.
All
There's
right.
no right or wrong answer. Like same for this person asks, okay, if we could only choose one, or if a client only had one option, eating only before a workout or only at, like if you have to choose pre or post workout, which one would you say is most important?
Again, what's the
Wow.
context? Are we talking about
Yeah.
they haven't eaten in 14 hours?
Be
I would probably
pre-workout.
say post-workout just because the research shows there's a lot of benefit to that post-workout meal. But if you had a meal an hour before you trained, then you don't need to eat immediately post-workout. Yeah, it's context.
I think pre-workout probably more than post-workout,
Yeah, because
unless
the
it's
performance, yeah, your performance in the gym is what matters. So what's going to have more of an impact on that? For most of us that are bodybuilders, the pre-workout meal, I think.
yeah. Post-workout's important, right? And I think stacking food around your training window, especially if your food is low, is important. But it's you know, that's why these questions are fun because there's no easy direct answer. I'd probably say pre-workout meal though. Yeah.
I think I would say pre-workout too, unless it was somebody training very early in the morning, like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. I know a lot of people that don't like to have too much like food in their stomach before they train at that early of an hour. But I also know, I don't know about you guys, I find that sometimes after I train, like I almost feel like training sometimes suppresses my appetite for a little bit afterwards. Like I don't walk out of the gym feeling like, oh my God, I need to run home and eat, like most of the time. Most of the time, like for an hour post workout, I'm not really even hungry much. But yeah, I would choose pre workout if I had to choose one.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like you,
And
Lexi. If I have a hard workout, I am not hungry. My stomach is kind of like shut down.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. What's another one you have, Evan?
Stairmaster or treadmill.
I'm hard on the treadmill for that one.
Yeah.
Stairmaster is for me a necessary evil at times, but I've done entire preps on a treadmill and I've done a lot of preps. I added, and this is personal anecdote. I was like, I want to get shredded. I wanted to do stairs. And I remember after a couple of weeks looking at my legs and being like, where'd my legs go? Like it just ate away at some of the lower body muscle that I had. So yeah, I prefer treadmill.
Yeah, I would say treadmill. I agree. I mean, I think the Stairmaster is, I don't want to say fun, but like I kind of like it sometimes every once in a while for a good mix up or challenge. But I think overall the treadmill is better from a recovery standpoint. And like at the end of the day, the athletes we are training for shows, like we don't need to worry about them being the best endurance athletes, right? Like the majority of their energy should go towards their lifts. And I find that when people are always doing like high impactful cardio, whether it's Stairmaster or something else, it sometimes starts to eat away at their lifting quality.
Yeah. If you're only going to pick one, it's going to be treadmill because it's way more versatile. You can do way more on it. You can speed it up. I mean, you could do the same thing with the Stairmaster, but Stairmaster is going to be somewhat systemically fatiguing no matter how you dice it,
Mhm.
more so than a treadmill is. So treadmill
I
is
always
just better
describe
all
it
around.
as it's basically a mini lunge. Every step is a mini lunge. So you're getting flexion on your foot, your calves, your quads, your hamstrings. So like there's been times on the stairs where like my arches on my feet start to hurt. And like with the treadmill, it's just a swing. You're just kind of going through the motions. And I just find it's much better overall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely better for
Okay.
preserving long-term muscle mass. I think Stairmaster is better if you got to get pounds off quick, but like if you're talking about preserving muscle and
Yeah.
it's going
Oh,
to be treadmill.
walking
Yeah.
is the most underrated form of exercise there is, hands down.
Agreed. Agreed. And this kind of same-ish kind of question. This person asks in an improvement season, would we prefer to keep a designated amount of lower cardio minutes for a client or just have a daily step goal? Because I know this is sometimes there are some coaches out there that are very adamant on like, okay, in improvement season, we're going to take out all your cardio and just do steps. I also know some other coaches are different. What do you guys prefer?
Go, Evan.
It depends on someone's work schedule a lot of the times with it. If they have trouble, getting up and moving, and look, steps take time, guys, like a lot of time. I can tell you it's really hard for me to hit close to 10,000 steps on my Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays because I sit in front of this computer so long. It's really, really difficult to it. So in fact, I'm trying to start, maybe move towards the prep here a little bit myself with it. I'm getting more movement in, and on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, I don't even set step goals for myself. I just go do like 30 minutes walking on the treadmill to make sure I get some good movement in, because if not, I won't get anything. I won't. Like, it's just, I have to force myself that amount of time to do it. I mean, you could do it outside walking too if you want. But that's the way I kind of do it for myself. I think it's 100% person dependent when it comes to that. Some people would rather just say, hey, I need to do 30 minutes 4 days a week or 5 days a week. And some people would rather say, hey, I want to, get 10,000 steps a day. I think it's mainly due to people's movement at a baseline level. Like if you got an active job, then you don't need probably any cardio. But if you sit at a desk all day with it, cardio could be helpful for you for sure. I'm not talking about high intensity cardio. I'm not talking about high heart rate cardio even. I'm talking about just getting out and moving a little bit.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
my experience with reverse dieting years ago was I found that even the clients that were really diligent with hitting their macro goals and walking the food up, I would kind of start to pull the cardio out, right? And I would go from 30 to 25, 25 to 20, and I would get them down to zero cardio. And all of a sudden they would just start gaining weight, even if I did not increase their calories. However, I find that if I keep most of my athletes between 15 and 30 minutes of walking a day, they maintain a much lower body fat. They also enjoy it. So for me, it's a lot about like, sometimes I'll say like, hey, do you want to reduce your cardio? And they're like, no, 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 I love my cardio. A lot of people think of cardio as a bad word, but like, I've learned that if I don't do some every day, I don't feel as good. So it's a learned like, I enjoy it because I know the benefits of it. And I've created an environment where, walking for me is very easy access. But I like to know what the client wants because, I've got personal trainers that are getting 15,000 steps a day. I did an experiment the other day. I actually walked for 1 hour and I counted my steps the whole time. Yeah, it was tedious, but I just wanted to I was just under 5,000 steps. So when someone's like, oh, just get 10,000 steps, that is not easy. Not many people have 2 hours to commit to walking a day. I was at soccer practice, as I do every, a couple days a week with the boys. And while they were doing soccer, I just walk laps around the field because I'm like, I'm not going to stand here. So I was just curious, like, how many steps am I actually getting? And so I was like, wow. So telling someone like, hey, just get 10,000 steps a day, realize what you're actually saying. That's 2 hours of walking.
Yeah. And I think it really depends on the lifestyle too. Cause like if it is somebody who is very sedentary, they work a desk job, especially this time of year too. Like if you live in a state where it's colder, I know a lot of my clients who live in like colder areas this time of year, it is hard for them to get in steps, especially if they don't have like a treadmill at home or a step pad. Cause like, what are they going to do? If it's 0 degrees, I don't want them to go outside and try to get in those steps while also suffering. So it's very person
What do
dependent,
you
but
mean? I thought if you got exposed to cold, you lost more fat. I'm confused
oh
about
my
that.
gosh. Well, I don't know
Walk
how you.
naked. Walk naked. Ignore the frostbite,
Okay.
and
Well,
you're going to get shredded walking outside naked in 0 degree weather. Lexi, you said
Yep.
it. Thank you for sharing your.
well, I will tell you when
Prep hack.
over Christmas, I remember there was we went to my family, we went to my grandparents' farm for like 24 hours and they live in Illinois. It was freezing this day, like this particular day, but I am so used to like getting up and like just moving to some capacity even if it's just a walk. And so I remember I was like, all right, I'm going to go outside, bundle up and just try to walk. And it was miserable. I did not make it far because it was windy, it was cold, and the wind was in my face. I looked like I was crying. My eyes were watering. So, yeah. So, I mean, I find that I am just like you, Paul. I have some clients that will vocalize to me that they do like a little bit of cardio in their improvement season. And I am very understanding of that. I'm never, against keeping in a nice moderate amount of cardio or a low amount of cardio, as long as it's not getting in the way of their recovery. I think the only exception to that is like somebody who has a really hard time keeping weight on. And if we're having to like push their food up really, really high and they're really struggling to keep weight on, generally I will bring down that cardio. Or just somebody who has a job where they're moving all day, like if they're a nurse or they work at a restaurant or they work in a warehouse, if they're already getting in just naturally like 15,000 steps from their job, generally there's going to come a point where we probably take out machine cardio.
Yep. And I think the way I've started to look at things now is, especially when I onboard new people, it's I don't necessarily give them a step goal anymore. I'm like, just walk what you do naturally and let's start tracking that and keep good track of it. And then kind of based off that, I'll say, okay, let's go ahead and add a little bit more cardio in, or start adding some cardio in. Or do you have time to get up and maybe move a little bit more? So I start asking more questions rather than just saying this is what we need to do to help fit into people's lifestyle better. And that's where coaching has nuance, right? Like I was in a conversation with the other day and someone was saying, I feel like bikini girls, their cardio is a whole lot lower now. And I was like, well, it depends on the situation, right? I mean, it depends on where you need to go, how much body fat you have to lose, how sedentary they are during the day. Like if I have a client that walks like 2,000 steps a day. They have a desk job. So guess what? They have cardio in their program. They walk 2,000 steps a day. They need it in their program. I have other people that 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,000 steps a day. We don't have any cardio in their off season. Doesn't make any sense to do that. Doesn't make any sense to do that. Anything that you add is changing a baseline number, right? It's what your body's used to. So that's a fun question. I like that.
Yeah. What do you have another one, Evan, that you want to do? Or do you want me to do one?
This is kind of a fun one here. Caramel or chocolate rice cakes?
Oh, I feel very passionate about this. So this is an easy answer. Caramel all day. I don't really see the appeal with the chocolate, if I'm being very honest. I love the caramel though.
Same. Caramel all day. Chocolate doesn't even taste chocolatey to me. I don't know.
It's dry too. I
Yeah,
like the
it's
caramel
drier.
how it has like that caramel has that kind of glaze. Oh, caramel's addicting. I remember I used to like eat the caramel and think, what do they put in these? Because like I'd eat one and I just want like five more. They are good. Yeah. Okay, this is back to a serious one. So fit model or bikini for a new lifter or a new competitor slash athlete?
I'm kind of torn on this because you want to go, well, of course, fit model. But guess what? Bikini has true novice. They have novice. So, like, is there going to be a difference between true novice, bikini, and fit model? No. Like, they're going to be the same level of like development. I don't know. Fit model, like, I still always fall back to this. Fit model is bikini. It's a different pose in a different suit, but the judging standards are the same. And nobody is showing up for an NPC show that is not going to fit both categories.
I don't know.
Like, yeah.
Unless you are a middle, like say top four at a national show, or unless you are a first call out at a national show bikini competitor, you probably
Yeah.
fit the fit model division better than you fit the bikini division currently.
Yeah.
The reason
But,
they
like,
introduced the fit model division is because the pro bikini division got so muscular, not because the local NPC bikini got so muscular.
but you also got to look at this. I looked at the last show, Evan. There was 18 in bikini and 4 in fit model. Do you want to do a show against 3 girls?
Right.
So like I'm just worried that they're going to water down these two divisions so much that I don't know. It's going to be great for girls that want to go get an overall, but because I saw the girl that won the overall at the last show and I was like, wow, she looks really good. And I wanted to go look at all the other girls. And I was like, oh, there was 3.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm torn on this one too. I am. And what's interesting is I had a posing session with a client like a week or two ago and she went to a seminar. I think it was there was a seminar in Salt Lake City like 2 weeks ago. And
Mhm.
she mentioned how when they were there, the person that was putting it on asked like, hey, by show of hands, how many girls are doing bikini this year and how many are doing fit model? And like there was still like probably she said like 80-90% of the girls there raised their hand for bikini and like a couple raised their hand for fit model. So I don't know if that's just because it's still so new and a lot of girls are seeing that like, oh, it's still very small, there's not many girls at each show. Because like I know personally, even if I was somebody that fit the fit model mold to a T, if I'm seeing that there's only like 4 girls at these shows, like I don't want to go on stage and compete against three other people, you know? Like I think the competition is exciting and I think most athletes that get into this sport also would agree that like you want to get on stage and you want to be able to compete against other people, not just you and one other person, you know?
Yeah, I don't.
I think, I'm sorry. I think fit model, I think the two big drawbacks to it right now, I think the biggest drawback to it is I think the suits are a big drawback. Big drawback. That's what I hear. Like you go look at comments under the post, the comments are there. I mean, the truth is, I don't like the suits. I don't think they look good. I think they look, even the shiny ones, with there's no bling on it, there's nothing on there. It almost looks like cheap on stage under the lights. I feel like if they were just normal bikinis with flower patterns or something, it would be way better than what they have currently. And I think they need to figure that part of it out because I know it turns off a lot of girls. And look, this is not my opinion. This is what I hear, right? And it's,
Yeah,
I think that's a big issue with the division. Is
that's
girls don't want to
interesting.
wear those bikinis. They don't want to wear them.
Yeah, that's
Most girls have less coverage when they go to the beach with their family. They
well,
do.
that's interesting because I heard that I do feel like I heard that a lot at the very beginning. And now I'm hearing more of not that girls love the suits, but I'm hearing from a lot of like people who have never competed before who are going to do fit model that they're kind of actually excited that they don't have to spend like $500-600 on a suit because
Well,
like
yeah,
that's
but
what I'm hearing now is more of the appeal. Like I don't know anybody that looks at the fit model suit and is like, oh my god, I'm so excited to get that suit. But I've heard some girls say, gosh, I feel a lot better. I'm not having to spend so much money on a suit, and heck, maybe I can get two different colors to just choose from because they're a little bit less expensive. So I have heard that side of things too.
no, that makes sense. Like the price of it, the price of those bikini suits are like, I mean, you're 400 to $1,000, right? They're obscenely expensive. I'm more talking about the cut and the coverage of it and how just the look of it, especially when you get on stage. Like if you watch those videos, right, from that first pro qualifier on there, the suits do not look flattering at all. They just don't. Yeah, they're cheaper, but they sure look it too.
They're just like posing suits. I
I
mean,
don't think this division is going to have any impact on the sport. Like, I don't, when you think about when bikini came out and when men's physique came out, and you saw like thousands of competitors that probably weren't going to compete for years get on stage, I don't think this division is going to change a damn thing. Um, I just don't. I don't know. I think they're looking at getting more women into the sport when they see the numbers dropping. And again, they never report the numbers. Like they don't go like, because if you look at it like this, like an NPC card costs what, 150 for the year? I don't even know it anymore. Because I
I
get it
think
every
it's
year because you have to have it as
2.75.
a coach to be backstage. Well, I competed in 23, so it's only been 1 year since I competed. But so if you get that NPC card, that's the NPC and IFBB money. That's their money. So if let's say they have, just making up numbers off the top of my head, 40,000 girls compete in 2023. And only they know this. Maybe last year they only had 30,000, right? Now they're looking at this going, holy crap, we've lost 25% of our revenue in 1 year. How do we get that revenue back? I got an idea. Let's make people pay for their pro cards. If they never paid for it, they lose their pro status. Okay, let's introduce a new division. That's the way my brain works. I could be way off base here, but I think and I don't think it's going to impact how many women compete. They've introduced more divisions for women since figure, bikini, they did wellness, now they're doing natural bikini, and now they're doing fit model. I just don't think it's going to have an impact on the sport.
yeah.
I think they're trying to go from the same well too many times. They're all pulling from the same group of girls. All this is pulling from the same group.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I feel like I mean, it's still so fresh and new. There haven't been many fit model shows, but I mean, if you look at, like, for example, the two girls that won the fit model overalls here in the States at the LA Fit Expo and then the Vegas show,
Las
they
Vegas, yeah.
were, yeah, they were both former bikini competitors. So it wasn't
Yeah.
like they were new into the sport. Like they both had done bikini before. They just transitioned over to this division.
Well,
So
I still believe the girl that won the overall in Las Vegas, I think she would have won the bikini overall. I think she would have won that show because the girl that won the bikini overall, her conditioning from the back was not as good as the girl that won the fit model overall. So I was like, And she was just a very pretty, very great shape, and that's what you've seen from both of the overalls. Both
right.
very pretty, great structure, great shape, nice amount of muscle, not too conditioned.
Yeah. Well, actually, on that topic, I got another, the conditioning topic, I got another this or that. Would we rather a client be a little too conditioned going into a show, like on show day, or would we rather a client be not quite conditioned enough, but still good shape?
I'm gonna say too conditioned.
Yeah, that's easy to fix.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like it's I feel like the only issue is when somebody is too conditioned, like if they're running through their food really quickly. And I know I've heard lots of pros talk about this where they have to like eat so much on show day, but you also have to be careful because it's like you can't eat too much to the point where it blows out your waistline either. So I feel like
That's just the approach of peaking, and that's why I like the linear
yeah,
load. You know, your digestive system is in between your mouth and your muscles. So like, yeah, you can't just throw it out and be like, oh, just I'll do 1,000 carbs today. Good luck. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
You've got to have a plan.
yeah.
I,
But no,
I I got some girls that burn through food like hard, 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 hard. And when that happens, I mean, I linear load them up, feed them up all week long, and you do everything you can to try to get the food up there as much as you can with it and try to back it down a little bit closer to the show. But it can get hard when girls are overly conditioned. It's way more things matter when you're overly conditioned than when you're not conditioned enough.
Yeah, but that's why I would say I would rather be someone be overly conditioned because you can't
Yeah.
fix someone that's not lean enough 3 days out. You can't fix that.
Nope.
exactly.
If
Mhm.
someone's overly conditioned, can you fix that? Yeah, you can feed them, you can make them rest, you can add some sodium, you can add some fat, you can tinker with things. But yeah, so as a coach, you're gonna get looked at if you're the leanest girl on
Yep.
stage. Might be for a bad reason, but um, I'd rather have that. And in fact, that's kind of my strategy is to push the conditioning past where it needs to be and then fill back up. And that's the sweet spot. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm with
What people
that.
don't really understand with the division to bikini is you have to be inside out peeled and not show it on stage.
Right. And that's why if you go look at Jazzy's pictures right now that she's posting on her stories, that's where she's at. She's got dug out abs. She won't have that on stage. That's like post workout. She just got done sweating. By the time she fills out, it's going to smooth all that enough that it looks more appealing for the bikini division, but she's going to look sucked in and tight. Like she's going to look incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. And people don't always realize too, like how lean off stage transpires to lean on stage. Like you could look very lean off stage and then get on stage and look soft, right? It's almost like you have to be that like overly lean off stage for it to transpire well on stage and look how it should.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Want to do two more?
Two more.
Sure.
All right. Which let's you do one, Evan, and then I'll do one.
Uh, Five Guys or anything or any other burger chain.
Well, I don't think anybody I think I'm gonna get like trolled for this. I've never had Five Guys, so I can't give an answer.
The answer is always Five Guys.
I'll say Five Guys is pretty solid. I'm trying to think if there's any. There's a place only in California, and I think maybe Vegas. I've had it called Habit Burger that was on that level. I really liked Habit Burger, but like I don't even really consider Five Guys fast food. It's not like Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger
No,
King.
just I'm talking about like burger chains. So you can put it up against like all the standard ones, right? Like Shake Shack, In and Out, all that stuff. But
I
they
mean,
aren't really
In and
comparable.
Out is like McDonald's to me. That's fast food. Shake Shack is a little more, sit down service. So I guess Shake Shack would be, but no, I don't like Shake Shack better than Five Guys.
There's
Yeah,
only
like
one burger better than the Five Guys burger.
if I'm craving a burger, Five Guys is probably getting my money. What's up? Who's that?
Best burger, Boulan in Tampa,
Oh,
bar
Bula.
none.
Now, if we're talking about sit down restaurants, I can name a few that I mean, yeah.
Like, see if
Go
you
go
haven't
to
been
any, go
there.
to any
Oh my
restaurant
gosh.
that actually blends their meats. So like ground beef with like
Hmm.
sirloin with like filet or like, I mean, now you're talking about a burger that you can't stop eating. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that steak we had last year. Speaking about that
Oh,
in
that place was
Columbus, Paul.
ridiculous.
Ho, 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 ho.
Oh
In
man, we might
Ohio?
have. Well, the fact is,
Yes,
I'm getting there Wednesday. I might have to check that place out because it'll be dead on Wednesday there.
that was. I looked at Paul. I was like, "Is this the best steak you've ever had?" He's
Yeah.
like, "Very wide mouth." It was so good.
Yeah, and I never would have gone there. I think that was Brian DaCosta's idea. He's
Yeah, it
invited.
was Brian's.
I was like, what place is it? It was across the street from the host hotel. So it was like right
Yep.
there. Man, that place was good.
So man, it was so good. It's packed in there too.
Yeah, I remember looking around at like, is everyone eating the same steak as me? Because this is crazy.
It was so good. I remember I always ask for raw horseradish with every steak I get.
Yeah,
I had that steak finished before they even brought it out to me.
yeah. That's a good sign. I don't like adding things to my steak. I don't add anything. So yeah.
Oh, so good. All right,
Interesting.
Lexi.
On that topic, well, it's not a food question, but on the Arnold topic, last this or that, Arnold or Olympia? So that's a hard one for me too. I'm like having to think about that.
I I say in almost every aspect, other than Olympia being Olympia, I would say the Arnold. Less competitors, more focused on the competitors. I like the fact that there's only like 12 people on stage. I like that. I think everyone gets compared. I think it's quicker. I think that the showing is better. Look, when you go to Olympia and you walk like Classic Physique, walk out there and there's like 55 guys and every one of them looks ridiculously good. It's almost like overwhelming and you just start glazing over. Same thing with Bikini, same thing with everything. But if there's 10, 12 people on stage, you can actually notice and see differences on there because there's not so many people. So many people.
Yeah. So if so I have two perspectives as someone who's attended and as a coach. As someone who's attended the Arnold, and it's not even close. The Arnold is just really fun to walk around. There's way more booths. There's way more variety of things. Um, I get Vegas as a fun city to visit, but I'd rather just go to Vegas for vacation than try to do both. As a coach, though, the Olympia, I just love the environment of the Olympia. Um, yeah, I've coached it both. Last year I had Otavia, and Daraj has done the Arnold with me. It's very like it's very brief because there's only like 12 girls. Um, so the Olympia is a little more, prejudging in finals, and then I don't know, there's nothing like getting a girl in the final call outs at the Olympia. Yeah, I would say spectator, the Arnold, coaching the Olympia. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard. I feel like I'm thinking about it. They're so close. I almost feel like I want to say Olympia just because it's in Vegas and I think it makes for kind of a fun trip. In Ohio, like no offense to Ohio, but it's not, not much happening there, at least from what I can see. But I will say I appreciate the ease and the accessibility from like Tampa to Columbus. It's such an easy flight. There's no time difference, so it's like same Eastern time. Whereas I know we talked about this year, Paul, like how when you go from West Coast to East Coast or vice versa, it takes several days for you to just like get acclimated. Like I know when, coming back from Vegas this year from the Olympia, it took me like a full week to just get back to my normal like sleep wake time. So from an accessibility standpoint, the Arnold is amazing, but I think just because it's in Vegas, I think the Olympia is just kind of fun. I love the mountains. I love the dry heat, so that's kind of fun. And it was nice too this year or this past year at the Olympia getting to visit Brett's gym out there too.
Yeah. 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 Listen, they're both very, very good. You got to do both. I wouldn't say one or the other is, but yeah, it's tough. The Arnold is the first ever expo I went to. So that
Same.
always has, that'll always have memories to me. That's where I wanted to go meet my coach. I remember going to the Muscle Tech booth and like meeting like Jay Cutler, and it just, it was more like the magazine had come to life. That was, 2000, gosh, 2005, I think I went 2006. That was when the magazines were still the primary driver of fame in the sport. And then it switched to the YouTube, Instagram fame, where like I would literally walk by a booth, there'd be a line for somebody and I wouldn't know who they were, which still happens to me, And so I don't know. The nostalgia of remembering the good old days, the Arnold was
Yeah.
awesome. Um,
I think to me, like the Arnold is like draw a comparison. It's like the bar lounge type thing, and the Olympia is like a club downtown. This is the kind of way that
yeah,
I will
I like
describe
it.
it.
I
That's a
like it.
good analogy. Yeah, I love them both. I just love expo weekends. I really do. I know some people are like, "Oh, I don't like expos," which hey, to each their own. I just love them. Like I love the
If you don't
energy.
like expos, you're not gonna like either. So
No,
that's like half of it, right?
I love expos. I know I've had a couple friends that I asked them if they're going to the Arnold this year, and they're like, "No, I'm not really into expos anymore." I'm just like, "Oh, I love them. Like I just get so much energy after an expo." Well, Okay, I take that back. After being at an expo all day, I do feel a little drained, but like after the weekend, I just come home and I'm just so excited and like, you always say this, Paul, after the Arnold, usually that's when everybody wants to compete. So I'm excited for like that rush of energy.
I'll have my full calendar open for new clients the week after the Arnold because it's like clockwork. And it's exciting because that's when you want people to be like, okay, I'm ready to lock in. So yeah, well, if you guys are interested in coaching, that's a good time to reach out because I'm gonna open up a bunch of spots in March. I'm sure you guys will too, to discuss plans. But yeah, there's also one other thing about those two shows that you don't really talk about, and that's actually Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was the reason I was interested in lifting weights. I've got a book right there, the Arnold Modern Bodybuilding Encyclopedia that I got, and I think I got in eighth grade, which would have been like 1989. And I used to read that thing cover to cover and just, so like Arnold's had this crazy impact. And, seeing him for all the years that I've gone there last year, because a client of mine actually works for him, I got to have breakfast with him and hang out with him and have a real conversation with him. So like that's an experience that I will never get at the Olympia. It's just so Arnold Schwarzenegger, and maybe today's kids, you know, don't have that same level of like awe of Arnold Schwarzenegger because he's more of like a movie guy. But like for me, he was the first fitness influencer that like mattered to me. So yeah.
Yeah. I remember you called me last year when you met him because I remember I was like it was at like 8 or 9 p.m. and I was like, oh gosh, I hope Paul's okay. And you were just like so excited that you got to meet him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of kept it to myself. It was
Yeah.
one of those things like I think, part of me wanted to post pictures or make a story, and I was like, you know what? This is for me. This isn't a social media like, hey, look at me, I met Arnold. This is like not for nothing, but like we actually had a real conversation. He asked me about myself, and so it didn't feel like a let's get a picture and move on. I was actually with him for some time, so it was, and I don't know if I'll get to see him this year, but so it just I didn't want to turn it into a I don't know. I remember going back to the core booth because it was breakfast on Sunday morning, and then I remember going to the core booth, and I was just like, and people were like, what's going on? What's wrong with you? And I was like, bro, I just had breakfast with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, what? I'm like, yeah, like I gotta go call my dad. Like it was like
Oh,
this. Yeah.
that's so funny. That is one thing I will say, like on the last note, the Arnold is kind of interesting how I always forget that there is an expo part on Sunday too. Like I always usually leave on Sunday morning, but the expo does go through Sunday, which I always find that's kind of, I feel like 3 days is a lot for an expo.
They do a lot on Sunday. They do a champion seminar. So like, here's the thing about bodybuilding fans. A lot of people show up they're like, oh, I'd really like to meet Chris Bumstead. And they go Saturday at noon. Good luck, dude. I
Time.
tell you what, though, go to the Sunday events. Why? Because everyone leaves, and you go to these champion seminars, and there's a few hundred people in the room, and you've got like a bunch of Mr. Olympias, a bunch of Miss Olympias. You've got all these Bikini Olympia champions. That's all the people are there on Sunday, and no one's in the expo, and no one's at these events. Go to these seminars, like that. That's really, I get it. Sometimes you got to get home, and that's the only time you can go. But there's been so many times I've been amazed, like Friday morning at the expo, it's dead.
Yeah. I
It's
think
dead.
Saturdays to attract a lot of the locals. I think that's when a lot
Of
of the locals
course.
come in, they're
Of
not
course.
not working, they come in for the day. So yeah, but I agree. If you want the best chance to meet people and
Look at the schedule and go to some of those events. Go to meet the competitors. Go to some of these events because it really filters the crowd out and you get a little more personal one-on-one time. And you can, even like if you like say you want to meet Laura Lee, go find her at her booth. A lot of people don't realize like, if we announce like we're doing our booth with Angels and I'll be at Core, you announce your times you're going to be there for a few hours. You're standing there alone for like a lot of that time. So it's exciting when people walk up.
yeah.
Um, so outside of like Chris Bumstead and Sam Sulek and, some of those people, the lines aren't crazy. You can talk to the people you want to meet.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for this weekend and I know I mean, I wish I could sit here and
Tomorrow,
come say hello to us, but this will come out the Monday after the
what's your boarding group, Lexi?
I don't fly out tomorrow. I fly out on 8:45 p.m. on Thursday night. So I
Oh
gotta,
God.
yeah.
My whole weekend is going to be over by then.
Well, I figured I didn't want to have to. I figured it would just be nice. I have all Thursday to work, and then I'll just head to the airport at night.
Yeah.
It's gonna be past my bedtime by the time I get to the to Columbus, but it's fine. I'm used to not a lot of sleep on Expo weekends.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening.
The Pro Physique code.
As always.
Leave a comment. Talk to you
Bye,
guys
guys.
soon.